You know, one of the reasons why soft plastic baits are so effective is because they're so versatile. You can rig them so many different ways that you can fish them virtually anywhere, right? All the way from super shallow to as deep as you can, in all kinds of cover and in water clarity and different water conditions year round, right? Part of the problem is that there's so many different ways to rig it. So let's just get down to the basics here. Here I want to talk about 3 of the most effective ways to rig soft plastic baits and fish them. They're also arguably the easiest. So let's start off with the Dropshot rig. Now the Dropshot has been around since, the 90s. And it's been a very effective way to catch fish, especially if they don't really want to bite. And it's in every bass angler's arsenal, right? It's like a go-to way of rigging your baits and catching fish when all else fails. So everybody should have a Dropshot rig set up, ready to go. One of the things that I hear about the most, or the questions I get the most, is leader length. Like, between the bait and the weight, like how long should that be? So as a general rule of thumb, I kind of split that between smallmouth and largemouth. Smallmouth, they tend to like the bait a little bit further off the bottom than largemouth. So I'll tend to go with about a 20-inch, 24-inch leader, whereas with bass, I'll go for about like a 12 to 14-inch leader as a good starting point. It's just the smallmouth, you get that bait further up off the bottom and then give it slack, and it takes longer for it to fall. They tend to hit it a lot more than if you do it with a largemouth. They want a little bit shorter. I don't know the reasons why. I'm just saying that seems to be the case. So that's kind of a general starting rule, but also I vary the weight, right? I typically start with an 1/8 ounce drop shot weight, but I'll go up from there as necessary. So if I'm fishing a little bit deeper, or if I'm fishing a little bit bigger bait, or if I've got some windy conditions, I might go up to a 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce. Heck, I've even been known to go to a 1/2 ounce in current. So there's that, right? So just kind of vary your weight. The idea here is you just want to be able to use as light a weight as you possibly can and not have the wind or current or any of that carry it away. So start with that. Also, one thing I want to dispel a quick myth here about Dropshot is that a lot of people think it can only be used in clear, deep reservoirs, and that's not true. Dropshot is a type of rigging. So yes, we're used to seeing finesse rods and small lines and 6-pound line and little bitty hooks, like a swivel hook from Gamakatsu with little baits. But it can also be used in muddy water, dingy water, with a little bit bigger baits, and you can even throw it in thick weeds. Here you got to heavy up using bait casting gear, braided line, and a heavier like flipping style hook. That's like a Bubba shot, and I promise you, you get that in weeds that are like standing weeds like milfoil. You drop it down in there and just jig it, and you'll see the bass come up, and they're looking at it, and then you just pop it up and let it fall, and one of them's going to commit. Right? And then once you do, now you're in thick weeds and you got to rip them out. So that's why you use heavier, stouter equipment. But just understand you're not limited to clear water conditions and little bitty baits and finesse type tactics. Speaking of baits, again, you can go the whole gambit of small baits, 3-inch baits, the normal, like the 4-inch finesse worms, the grubs, the tubes, leeches. I like to use hand-poured baits a lot, so I'll use those, even mini Sluggo-style baits or 3-inch Senko-style hand-poured baits. I like to use those, again, in those typical, traditional clear water reservoir conditions. But when I'm heavying up and I'm fishing in muddier water or I'm Bubba shotting in weeds, I'll use like a rage bug or even a 6-inch finesse worm or maybe even some other creature bait like a lizard. Let your imagination go wild and try it. You'd be surprised at how versatile and how effective the Dropshot rig is in all kinds of conditions, so give it a shot. The next rig is the Wacky Rig. Yeah, the Wacky Rig, it's so simple, and all you do is you just take the hook, put it right in the middle of a soft plastic stick bait and throw it out there. I mean, that's the most easiest way to fish it, and you let the bait do the job. right? Sometimes people overwork it and they're wiggling the rod tip and giving pops and stuff. Sometimes the best way to fish it is just throw it out there and let it fall on its own. The bait shimmies and wiggles as it falls, and that often is the key to getting the bite, just letting it do its thing and letting it fall naturally. But you can also do a few other things to it. You can add like a nail weight on one end, and now you've got yourself a Nico rig. The thing about it, when you do that, a lot of times it spirals on the way down. So I like to use the Nico rig hook from Gamakatsu. It's got an actual swivel on the hook, and it rigs it Texas style, so it's weedless. So now you can fish it. You don't have to worry about that hook being exposed. You can fish it in cover, and the line isn't going to twist. So now you've added an immense amount of versatility to the Wacky rig just by using the Nico hook and a nail weight. But sometimes when the fish are really deep, you can use put it on the end of a split shot or more like a drop shot, like I just mentioned. Wacky rig it that way. You can get it down when the fish are a little bit deeper, and now you got a Wacky rig bait. You've combined two, and it can be a very, very effective way of catching fish. So Wacky rigs, definitely, it's got to be in your arsenal. And of course, you can't talk about soft plastic baits without talking about the Texas rig, right? That is like the universal way of fishing soft plastic baits. When I'm talking about the Texas rig, you got it rigged on the hook so that it is weedless, and you've got a bullet sinker up front. That to me is a Texas rig. Now you can fish all kinds of baits this way, but the favorite ones I like to do are the 5.5 inch ribbon tail worms, like from Big Bite Baits. I like to throw that. I like to throw lizards and rage tail bugs. Those are like my favorites to fish Texas rig, but you can fish, there's a bunch of other type of baits out there that you can rig and throw. The key is like how much weight to use. That's a question I get a lot. And as a general rule of thumb, the colder the water is and or the less active the fish are, the lighter the weight you want. In other words, you want a slower fall during those periods. But when the water's warmed up and the fish are actively biting, that's when you want to use a little bit heavier weight for a faster fall and get them to react to it and get them to not think much. They don't want to view it that long. You just want them to, as it passes by, they've got to hit it or lose it. And typically when they're really active biting, a heavier weight will elicit that bite. Now you can fish Texas rigs typically on inside and outside weed lines. The inside line is that's the weed line that's closest to the shore, and that's usually good in the springtime when the fish are up shallow, up there feeding, getting ready to spawn, cruising those shallows, feeding on fish. Those inside weed lines are really good areas to fish, whereas the rest of the year, the outside weed line is a better choice. But you can also fish them around docks, stumps, logs, in weedy cover. It could be lily pads, reeds, even floating mats of vegetation or submergent vegetation, you know, hyacinths, lily pads, coontail. There's all kinds of weeds that you can fish with a Texas rig. The point is just pick a few baits, pick a few proven baits like the Texas rig worm and a lizard, just like stick with those and vary the weight a little bit. Maybe start with a 1/4 ounce weight and then heavy up a little bit if you've got too much wind or current or too much cover and it's not going all the way in, or lighten up if you have sparse cover, go to an 1/8 ounce weight to slow down that fall, and go out there and have fun, right? That's the thing with these 3 rigs. There's so many different ways you can rig a bunch of baits, but if you just stick to these 3 rigs, it's pretty much gonna cover every situation that you come into, and you can fish them year round. So go out there, try them out, have a lot of fun. For more tips and tricks like this, visit BassResource.com.